Ark has a wealth of dinos with different strengths and weaknesses, but unfortunately there are a few that simply fall behind in the usefulness category, and they could definitely benefit from some evolution. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be looking at 5 dinos that need a buff. These dinos were chosen both from personal experience and input from the Play Ark Reddit, and are in no real specific order. So without further ado, let's get into it. Firstly, the Trike. Being the first decent berry gatherer in the game, this might seem like an odd choice for this list, but the sharp fall in usefulness that the Trike will take in the early game really does kind of cement it as a dino that does need a buff. With generally lacklustre base stats, terrible movement speed, and the annoying tendency to stop moving to attack, a feature which it'll show up more than once in this list definitely, the Trike is quickly reduced to nothing more than a mid-game kibble dino very quickly. Although it does have a hefty damage reduction to the head area, and it can do a decent amount of knockback against smaller enemies, it would be nice to see the Trike to be able to both attack whilst moving, and perhaps have higher base stats in general, or at least higher movement speed, as low-level Trikes are an absolute nightmare to use. Secondly is the Karno. There's no denying that when you see the Karno for the first time, especially if you just started to play Ark, it is a terrifying sight. Myself, I spent my first week living on a beach that often saw the appearance of an alpha Karno, and quite a high level one, which is a truly horrific sight for somebody who had a spear, a bow and hide armour. However, the Karno is quickly outclassed in speed, health and damage by many other mid-game carnivores such as the Thylacoleo, the Dire Bear, and even low-level Rexes that can be tamed just as easy as the Karno. In the end, this dinosaur just ends up suffering the fate of being relinquished to the realm of kibble dinos, and could really do with some form of buff to make it again viable in the mid-game. Perhaps some alternative attack, a status effect, a roar, or just a base damage and speed buff. Next up is the Sarco. This is a really cool looking dino, but unfortunately it never actually lives up to the hype and terror you get when you see this thing lunge out of the murky swamp water for the first time. Though it does fare as a good early game amphibious dino, boasting excellent movement speed in water and decent speed on dry land, the Sarco eats raw meat like it's going out of fashion, and its bite radius is, well, to put it simply, atrocious, with the damage dealing hitbox being placed at the tip of its nose rather than in a radius around its already massive jaws. The Sarco is very quickly outclassed in almost every way by the Spinosaurus, and is arguably not even worth the time to tame. Just by simply reducing the food drain and increasing the bite damage radius, it would make the Sarco much more practical tame, although it could be nice to see it have some sort of new status effect, maybe a damage over time due to being, bitten by jaws that have been in dirty water, or perhaps just a straight up bleed effect, something to just make the Sarco a little bit different. Next up is the Megalosaurus. The giant deer is actually a fairly decent speed scout and does a good job of gathering thatch, but it simply just doesn't function as intended. The Megalosaurus, as it says in the dossier, is a skittish herbivore that prefers to flee rather than fight, which makes taming it a nightmare without a dedicated taming pen, which is actually fairly easy to build. When attacking, the Megalosaurus is said to induce bleed damage and reduce the stamina of whoever it hits, but this feature simply is not implemented yet. A feature of a great scout is the ability to retaliate when absolutely necessary, and the Megalosaurus offers, well, nothing special in terms of its retaliation, especially considering that females, the faster ones, can't even attack. With a base damage that could be easily bested by a Thylacoleo, a mid-game carnivore that offers fast movement speed, wall scaling and respectable damage, this unfortunately does make the Megalosaurus a lesser choice when the better option is available, and it would be nice to see the deer finally get its status drain effects implemented to make it a bit more feasible for mid-game land scouting. And finally, the Megalodon. This mid-game ocean tame looks damn good, but its performance is subpar. With disappointing base stats and a terrible bite radius, the Megalodon offers really nothing special, and could really do with a buff to make it at least competitive with the Plesiosaurus. I think that with a bite radius increase, better base damage and stamina and health increase, perhaps a special attack or status drain, the Megalodon could finally claim its worth as a decent mid-game ocean tame. At the moment, it's just bested too easily by the Plesiosaur, which itself isn't too hard to tame. And there we have it, 5 dinosaurs that are in real need of a buff. If you have enjoyed this video, do go ahead and drop a like below, and if you do feel differently about which dinos need a buff and which dinos don't, feel free to let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the channel whilst you're there. I've already made a lot of Ark content with a lot more coming, so subscribe to stay up to date with my lists, guides, builds and more. Again, thanks for watching, and I shall see you soon.